Norman Beach in Granada.
Was he panhandling again?
We have everybody here.
No.
It's 6:01. May we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Stone? Here. Mr. Kostelakis?
Here.
Mr. Kostelakis?
Present.
Mr. Lamont?
Here.
Ms. Remark?
Here.
Mr. Libby?
Here.
Ms. Ramsey?
Here.
Mr. Lee?
Here.
Chairman West?
Present. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Also-
moved.
okay, I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I skipped the pledge and invocation. Tracy, can you lead us?
Okay, sure.
But it's not on the agenda.
I thought so. We did keep it.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Lord, for just the fact that we do live in a free country, open to debate and ideas, open to different ways of thinking and doing and being. And we just ask that you guide our thinking in tonight's discussion, that we always put the best interests of the city in which we live and which we love forward above our own. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Tracy. Okay, before going into public comments, Reed tells me that we have Captain Newcomb in the audience. And Captain is the now in charge of our beach side, and so we'd like to have him come forward and introduce himself. And
What happened to Captain Hoffman?
thank you for coming, Captain.
Thank you. I've had a chance. Some of you I've been able to see at different times. I've been here for a little over 20 years, but usually I've been at night, so I don't see you during the day. I've been the nighttime lieutenant for a while. So I've talked to some of you. I took over for Captain Hoffman when he left, and I'm real familiar with everything that goes on the beach side. I don't have a fix for all the problems. I wish I did, but just to let you know, I'm here to help. I'll leave my card. It has my email and phone numbers on it if you guys need something.
Good. I was going to ask.
Feel free to call me. Usually email is the best way because that'll go right to the phones. But whatever you want. I mean, here to work together, get the police out there and fix up as much as we can to get things moving forward. You guys have any questions for me?
I just have one comment. We have determined that the young man and young lady standing holding a sign open for business at the corner of Main Street and A1A is illegal.
Those are signs.
It's-
So I don't know what they're doing. Are they spinning them?
They're holding a sign, walking up and down in front of the store, advertising contents in the store.
And
The
they-
T-shirt shop.
They spin
I was-
them, and they shake
Then
them.
it's-
I know, I was told, by the way, because I looked
Well,
into
wait a
this.
minute, let's,
Right.
is that?
Yes, it's a code enforcement issue.
It's a code enforcement
Yes.
issue, okay. So then it is a violation,
Yes.
okay.
Would it be considered off-site advertising?
There's a couple things. There's
Okay.
that, and then there's another provision, I believe it's state requirement.
Right.
On the
That's correct.
percent, you can't go out and have sales every day like that.
Yeah, well, it is every day, and it's on a regular basis. And I was just, even though it is a code issue, obviously, we've been bringing it to this board for the last 6 months at least, Tracy, maybe 9 months. Maybe there's some way that the police could help.
I will. I'll get with Hector
okay.
Garcia. He's been very helpful, so maybe we can find out.
That'd be
Get it
great,
resolved.
that'd be great. Because what it does is it sets up a dynamic where other property owners then think it's okay for them to do that as well. And you've got, an A1A there making that right-hand turn is not a whole lot of space, and you've got somebody waving a big sign in front of you. It could make for a really nasty accident.
Well, yeah, and then if you don't address it, everyone will be flipping
Yeah,
signs up on
exactly.
A1A.
Thanks.
So we're starting to see that with some of the parking signs I've been working with Hector on to get
Or
deal
the
with parking lots.
or the flashing open signs that apparently are really cheap at stores and
Oh,
are
yeah.
showing up everywhere, yes.
$19.99 at Sam's.
Yeah.
But I'd like to comment on that. I looked into that because, the guy was irritating me too, and he was doing it on a daily basis. So I talked to Paul McKittrick and to Mr. Garcia, and they actually were both present. And then Mr. Garcia said that he has a constitutional right to hold the sign. As long as he's holding the sign and doesn't have it planted into the ground, there's nothing he could do. That's what he said.
Well, we prohibit moving parts
Right.
on any sign. That person is a sign,
Yeah.
so.
Okay,
It's
that's
prohibited.
fine.
Yeah.
So
Take a look. That'd probably be an
What Mr.
extension of the
Garcia
business.
said to me.
Well, there also appears to be a miscommunication between Mr. Garcia and the legal department and what is actually permitted or not permitted.
It's not a protest sign, it's
Yeah.
50% off.
I'll get with them and see what we can work out, because we don't want them popping up all up and down the avenue,
Yeah.
that's for
Pre-
sure.
Appreciate that. And you have some of those cards you can leave with us?
Yeah, I'll leave them right here.
Okay.
Oh,
excellent.
great, thank you.
Welcome, nice to meet
Welcome.
you.
Thank you very
Captain.
much.
Appreciate it. Okay, moving on to public comments. Do we have any public willing to make a comment? John?
Isn't it John Q. Public? Isn't that actually
John Nicholson, 413 North Granville Avenue. I was at a meeting this morning with the downtown, and Votran spoke, and his comment was that we had an option of having the trolley and paying for it, or the normal bus route, the 4 buses that travel normally at night, and we've apparently voted to dispense with the free buses, the 4 buses, and pay for the trolley. And you guys paid for it, and you paid disproportionate share of the trolley. You gained nothing in distance from the trolley. The distance over the Main Street Bridge and back over the Orange Avenue Bridge is less than the trolley used to travel on A1A, so you absolutely lost footage in terms of where the trolley goes, but you now pay like 3 times what downtown pays, and they gained the 4 or 5 blocks along Beach Street. So I just found that out today. I didn't realize that after 6:30 there are no more buses on the beach side, only the trolley. Secondly, I really, really think you need a parking map for Beachside. Everybody's complaining about not being able to find parking for Joe's Crab Shack. You have plenty of parking on the beach side. It's a distance. They are driving 20 minutes, and it would only take them 5 minutes to walk. So it would be a lot to our benefit to get a map out there to show all the places where they can park, because they don't know. And our signage is the pits. We have the parking, even public and private, that they can use. So I'm asking you to consider the idea of having some kind of a map from the CRA to show them where to park. Police presence, I think we need our fair share of police officers. If you look at it, we're not getting our fair share as a city. We have 60,000 to 40 to 60,000 people on the beach side at any given time. We have the tourists, the residents, and the people working in our hotels and businesses. We do not get our fair share of police officers, and that is a problem. We deserve to have them. We shouldn't have to pay $1 million for them. We remember the last time we paid $1.3 million, whatever it is, $250,000 per officer. It was ridiculous to pay that kind of amount of money for one guy. So we deserve to have our fair share of police officers, and I would ask you to look into them. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Dave?
Could I just ask, oh, were you going to? Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna bring this up, but John brought up Votran, so I might as well
Oh,
bring it up.
that's what I was going to ask.
Votran's come up with this new program where they give out free trolley passes, where they can drop them off at the businesses along A1A, and they're for everybody. Well, it's become a royal pain, because all we're getting in the store are homeless, bums, drunks, coming in there wanting their free trolley pass. The way they want to give out free passes for the tourists, what I thought Frank Bruno was supposed to be, this was supposed to be for, give it to the motel people to give to the people when they check into their rooms. This way they'll have a free pass. If they're going to be there for 6 days, they get 6 passes because they're only good for 1 day. But to just drop them off at the stores and to say there's free passes out there, I ended up just giving all mine away to 3 people just to get them out of the store and be done with it. It's a program that, great idea in theory, but they didn't think it through, and it's a mess. So I think giving it to the motel people to give out to their guests would be the way to go.
Okay. Thank you.
I did just have a question, though, while we're on Votran. Any idea about the trolley and downtown voting and what John said, Reed? Do we have
Yeah. Any idea why that's?
Well, it's based on the linear feet. This is just the trolley, okay? And what the trolley route is and what we've been asked to pay for it. As it comes off of the normal route that they take is just A1A.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we've asked them if they would come down we looked at Main Street, looked at ISB. The determination was using ISB to get over to Beach Street and loop around. So that part of Main Street was included in the linear fee. So the Main Street fund's picking up that section to the middle of the bridge. That's the only part it's paying for, is those linear feet.
Okay.
And then downtown is paying for its
Their part.
linear feet, and the city itself is paying for all the remainder.
Okay.
But
No.
If I'm correct-
Convention and Visitors
What
Bureau.
about
Well,
IB
that's a good point. What I'm saying is we're paying for some of the linear feet, and then there are other groups that are subsidizing this time around in a new agreement that includes a number of folks that are putting dollars in on this new agreement that's going forward with these free passes.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Gary.
this is such a good idea that no one will take credit for it. The county is the active agent behind this. It's not the CVB, it's not the city, it's not the merchants. It's Volusia County for some reason, and they have been hammering away to get partnerships to do this for some reason. I don't know if there's a mission involved in this other than to diversify the look of public transportation so it is more in keeping with the theme. I don't know what it is, but the CVB refused to participate twice, and the third time they were urged very strongly to participate in this program. I doubt it'll happen again, but I think it would be very good for the city to get some sort of a brief, non-scientific survey on how it worked or did not work for us, so that we're not revisited upon the same theme again in the future.
I might just clarify that the HA board had declined, and the
Yes.
chamber was actually.
Pardon me, yes,
Yeah.
it was Hobble.
Yeah, and the Chamber of Commerce was actually, I think, the birthplace of these ideas of partnering, and so it was the county and the chamber, the cities, all got together and worked on this, and it went through a couple different
Iterations,
circles,
yeah.
But here we are.
I think we owe it to the public entities to give them some sort of feedback. One of the big problems is if you don't write a letter to the editor, or a group doesn't do some sort of an analysis of the success of it, this is liable to happen again.
See,
And,
something like this, should have been brought before us, just for discussion purposes. We could have maybe thought of some of these problems that we're encountering, but it's just something that they throw out there, and they don't put any thought to it, and it's a feel-good thing, but it really doesn't work.
Well, I guess what I would say at this point is, I think what I understand of Votran is they'll do some things on the fly to try to tweak this and make it right.
Yeah.
And so we'll look forward to some of that, adjustments that they can make with some of the feedback, and we will pass this along.
And my phone's open to them anytime they'd like to call.
Well, I think Mr. Lamont's suggestion that the hotel motel owners should be the first point of contact is a very good one. I think that would solve a whole lot of problems, and it would get done what the intention of the program is.
Yeah, and I think there was a last-minute effort to try to bring everyone over the Ocean Center, and it was just weren't that many people there. I was there, but it was sort of at the last second, so no one could really probably get there.
Okay. Any other public comments?
Yes, I have a question.
Public comment?
Is a public comment, yes.
You have a comment portion at the end for board members. Will it wait till the board comments?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, okay. All right, any other public comments? Moving on then to item number 5, DEV 2012-075, the architectural embellishments at the Ocean Deck Restaurant. And who's going to carry the water?
Well, before Ocean Deck gets up here and carries the water, I just want to introduce this as staff being approached by Ken Botts over at the Ocean Deck and said, and this is, gosh, it's been over a month, probably 2 months ago when it all kind of started, and look, we want to do something, let us read the sign ordinance and look at the different ways that we might be able to do something to bring some, do something to liven up the side of our building and draw more attention to it, but we want to do something that people would appreciate. And so that we waited and waited in suspense, and what you have before you is the results of some of the due diligence and coming into TRT a couple of times to our staff, and now they want to provide you with their presentation, let you know that they think they have an idea that you may like. An architectural embellishment is a three-dimensional piece, and you're seeing sort of in the 2D version when you're looking on the piece of paper, so you'll need some more description here that we didn't have at the time we put this report together. And so for that reason, I'd like to ask Ken Botts to come up and answer any questions you have and kind of tell you what, from his version, of what he's trying to do here. Ken?
Thanks, Reed. Ken Botts. I am with the Ocean Deck, 127 South Ocean Avenue. I reside in Port Orange. I don't know if you had the cover letter for that application. Was that included on there, Reed?
I don't think so.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Let me just quickly try to read this to you. It would probably be easier if you could read it yourself. But this was the cover letter that accompanied the application I turned into the city. It says that the Ocean Deck has been a Daytona Beach tradition for over 50 years. Tiny, obscure, and unassuming back in the 1960s, it has now evolved and grown to be Daytona's landmark on the beach. And Daytona's landmark on the beach is something that we use in our advertising quite often. The city of Daytona Beach is famous for its beach, the world's most famous beach. The city is also well known for its love of the arts, both visual and musical. The Ocean Deck has become famous for great food, great drinks, and great music. Fun, surf, and sun are obviously synonymous with both of the above, both the city and the Ocean Deck. The city's transformed the beachfront into a beautiful splash of color with the Ocean Walk shops and with the revitalization of the Main Street Pier. The Ocean Deck has likewise transformed over the years, and the new ownership, I am included in that group, would like to take that old building and transform it and revitalize it in much the same way. We're proud to propose a colorful addition to the beachside that will complement the vision that the city has for the beach, with a bright, fresh, new look to attract a new guest and a new customer without people losing that memory that they have from years of tradition of what they've built in their minds of what the Ocean Deck has been. And likewise, when you guys redid the Main Street Pier, kept things pretty similar to the way they've been for a long time. So that was basically the cover letter that included that. I've been at the Ocean Deck for over 23 years, so I've seen it go through the different evolutions over time. The previous owner, Dick Keogh, has spent a lot of money on the building to upgrade it, both size-wise and just aesthetic-wise. As you know, Ocean Avenue hasn't always been the prettiest section of Daytona Beach, but with what you've done on the pier, and I think what Dick has done in the past to the Ocean Deck, we're just trying to build on that a little bit. Give the building a little bit more visibility, give it a little bit more excitement. And that's why we're here, is to see if you'll help us do that. And again, I'm open to questions. As Reed said, the design phase has pretty much been us trying to figure out, what to put on the side of the building. As you'll see, some of those elements you'll recognize from past CVB promotions that they've put together in print. That sun at the top of the building has been used for some time in the advertisement that they do in print all around the world and on the internet. And likewise, the beach balls, the big beach, big fun piece that they've used for years as well. And the other elements, just a surfer, beach.
Do I understand correctly that what you're doing is proposing to put these graphic elements on the existing structure?
They'll be attached to the structure, correct. And they'll be made out of laser cut foam. And again, that's something that the sign company has in their hands right now. And to some degree, that'll involve some expense with them trying to do some design. And I didn't want to get real involved with that unless it was something that the board was in
This will be
approval
going
of.
both north and south faces?
Yes, you've got, I think you have both the north and the south. That is the north side of the building that you would see from the pier, and then likewise, there's an identical piece that you would see from ISB on the south side.
Okay.
Is this lit?
It will be lit, and we'll have to
How?
have, well, that again is up to what the city and their code will allow, and likewise what the county will allow during certain times of year during turtle season.
Okay, and how far does this extend out from the building?
That's what they're,
Ballpark.
design-wise, that's what we're working on now. They've been instructed that they don't have a lot of room to work with. There's a ocean deck walkway on the north side of the building.
Mm-hmm.
And that sun deck that you see there at the Mayan Inn, the white fence, actually that picture you're seeing now is the south side.
Can we go back to the north side?
The north side, that sun deck is probably 5 feet, however wide a typical walkway, it's probably 5.5, 6 feet of walkway in between my building and the start of that sun deck, which has a similar white fence on that side.
Okay, so it's not coming out over there. In fact,
No,
because
no.
it looks like it's curving underneath, so it looks like it's curving underneath where the railing is, right?
Where that railing is, that's all affixed to the building, and
Okay.
the railing, that same railing extends in each direction,
Right.
both east, west, and north, south on that sun deck. So it will be a 3D piece, but it's not, it can't take up a whole lot of room. You don't want people reaching out and touching it from the sun deck, or
Okay.
reaching out and touching it from that walkway.
Well, from the walkway, will they be able to, if you're walking into the top floor of the ocean deck, can they touch it walking that way? Or is it going to be higher?
No,
than that?
no, not at all. The walkway at the ocean deck is to the west of that,
West.
right underneath the dormers. If you see the dormers there, that's heading west
Okay.
toward the parking lot.
So the,
So the
blue,
walkway-
So the blue wave comes down, so you're inside the building before you get to the blue wave?
Yeah, the stairway, that walkway ends right there. Actually, it's tough to see because the Mayan Inn Tiki Hut
Okay, I
is
see.
right
Okay, I
there.
got it now. I
So
see.
where the Tiki Hut is, that's where the building
Okay.
ends.
Gary?
Under Land Development Code, Article 18, Appearance Standards, I guess Section 6.19 is the applicable section. There are, under D, all applications for approval shall meet the following requirements. Not some of them, not 3 of the 5, but all of them, I'm assuming, the way this is written. And number 3 stands out to me dramatically. Wall graphics and embellishments shall be for the aesthetic enhancement of the building. Scale, design, intensity, and character shall be consistent with the design of the building and compatible with the building and surrounding structures. Yet your sign violates the roof line and violates the side profile, architectural profile of the building. So I, in a strict reading, would disqualify this for at least number 3, and there might be some other lists here that do it. Did you violate the roof line and the profile of the building for impact? Why? Knowing, I'm sure that you've read this section D, knowing that the more you do it, the more difficult it gets
Right.
to satisfy
And those were
that
some of the
requirement.
discussions that we had with Reed and the TRT groups on Tuesday morning. I think I went to 2 of those and we talked about it. And those were discussions that were brought up by Colleen as well as by Dennis. And again, Reed could probably speak to that better than I can.
I think it's for the board to determine what it believes that means in there, in that section. We take the strict meaning of that, probably to stay within and not go over the roof. And so what you're saying is what we were saying as well, is when you start doing that, pushing out, you know, this is going to be one of the issues. And, you know, whether or not it's going to be something you think you find is
It's worth it.
compatible, yeah, is
worth it. It's
going to make
worth it.
some sense, and because of it's not completely out there, it's just coming out a little bit. Do you see that as a problem or not?
Reed,
I remember when Mr. Keogh renovated the building, and he was very careful about the profile and the architectural integrity of the building, because he wanted it to have a presence. This sign, in my mind, really affects that, and I'm not so sure that for the Main Street redevelopment area, it's worth the trade-off. I think you might be able to do exactly what you want to do without doing this to the building. That's a pretty serious precedent to set in the Main Street area.
Reed, I think I've already set that precedent, okay? If you look at the Mardi Gras
Right.
Fun Center and look on the side facing Ocean Avenue, I used the architectural embellishment when I came before the Main Street Redevelopment Board and got the permit to do the sign that goes outside of my parameter and curves and has a jester on top.
We don't need to make the same mistake twice.
No, you're saying we're setting the precedent. The precedent has been set. I mean, it's not, I mean,
No, it hasn't been set. This is a
let's-
totally different board, it's a different time. And if you were able to massage your way through all 5 of these, because you have graphics on yours as well, on the front of yours, which is not allowable. I don't think that the amusement park paper mache figures are applicable.
Oh, no, you're looking at the boardwalk end. Well, I use that there too, but on the Ocean Avenue end, I have a curvy sign that fronts A1A that actually has neon going around, and
Now,
then
you do realize that everybody in town thought that building would be bulldozed down. You know that, don't you, Dino?
oh, I realize that.
Yeah.
Everybody but Dino.
All right, but I put my money where my
Anyway, I
mouth.
think that there are, I don't fault you at all for wanting to give the building a greater vitality or visibility. But first, your logo says, we're the established location on the beach the way we are, and then the sign sort of violates a lot of that tradition. That's all. Not that tradition is everything. I just have problems with what the sign does to the architecture of the building.
Well, some of the discussion that we had in the TRT meetings was about that, again, that existing, the only thing that's on that side of that building now is the ocean deck sign, which is consistent with code. When we talk about an architectural embellishment, some of the discussion that was brought up is that it's not a sign and would not be required to meet the same requirements as the sign.
But this is architectural embellishments.
That's
Wall
what he's
graphics
talking
and
about.
Okay.
architectural embellishments in any district, section 619D. So it's the wall graphic or architectural embellishment is what
Okay.
this section. So that's not a way to escape the horns of the dilemma.
Gary, do I understand your concern that it's going outside the parameters of the boundary of the building? And if they brought it within the boundary of the building, that you would be more comfortable with it?
much more, I mean, I don't
Yeah,
necessarily.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
Say
I'm
I'd
just-
support it, but it would be a lot easier to understand, I think, if it didn't violate the architecture of the building.
Because I have concerns about, this one and then the next one and the next one, and everybody doing these graphics that embellish their building beyond what the building is supposed to be, and we end up with
Yeah.
a carnival atmosphere instead of, and I think we can do that by staying within the parameters of the building.
But I don't think that is a carnival atmosphere, and when you come down to it,
You're running an amusement park.
well, okay, I'm running an amusement park, but this is also in the E zone, and part of the argument for the E zone is to be more lax and to allow for fun activities, stuff like this, and to me, that's
Within-
fun.
Within certain parameters, though, but that's for the board to determine, so, all right.
And I would.
Any other comments?
Yeah, because on several levels, I like it. I find it interesting and eye-catching, and it fits in that area. But there's two elements of it that I agree with Gary. I don't mind the wave going outside, but the sun and the beach ball, I think, totally ruin the whole look of Florida, that Florida look of that building. Especially when you're looking at everything that was done for the metal roof, the shake shingle look to it, or the clapboard look to it. And I think those, and I also don't particularly think those even work with that graphic, but that's just taste. But I think it's much more striking, the large surfer guy himself, and I think the others actually interfere both with the aesthetics of it and the impact of it. You've made it gets way, way, way too busy. Way too busy.
Right.
And that ruins your aesthetic appeal that what we're given here are not sign standards, they're appearance standards for wall graphics and embellishments. And that's what we're talking from here. But I mean, overall I like the idea, but I don't like the sun and the beach ball. I think they ruin your building. And I mean, just ruin your building.
Yes, from a design standpoint, I think I understand the wanting of the sign because of visibility, people coming down the beach so they can see your place of business. Makes a lot of sense. And I don't have a problem with large graphics at all. In fact, I think they kind of chime into what the festivities of Dino's places and things are. I think, however, that if you would completely redesign the sign in a whole new concept, and if you would tie the ocean view side with the north and south side and tie it into the architectural design of the building, you would still get a huge visibility, your name, you know what's going on there. But it probably would not be quite so caricature or billboardish, but could at the same time, say it's a fun place and surfers and that sort of thing. But I think the thing to do is to not, it's just too much like a billboard applied to the sign of an architectural building style that everybody in this beach likes to see. But if you would design it, have your designer design it within the lines of the building, and I think equally important, to tie it across the front of the building, because then I think it would look like it belongs on the building. So maybe, it's just a suggestion, but maybe if you could just take a whole new, a viewpoint on it and try a different design. That'd be my suggestion.
Okay.
I was to say, I do think you captured that, saying it's billboardy. That's what strikes me.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I like it. To me, I agree with Tracy with regard to the sun and the ball, but then you're getting into what's art, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I like the wave. I like the surfer guy. I think it
I do
matches what
too.
the ocean deck is.
and it matches the experience that I've had when I'm at the ocean deck. And it's accomplishing the goal of being highly visible from the beach. You could even make an argument that the surfer guy matches the theme of the hotel beside you. So I like it. Like I said, I don't really care for the sun and the ball. I think it's a little bit overkill, but the surfer guy, I think if you just took the ball and the sun out, just like Tracy said, it would be perfect.
I think it would be smashing with those with
And
those
that's why
out.
we're here.
Yeah.
Reed and I kind of squished this together really quick so I could get in front of you, so that the process was not going to take another 3 or 4 months between coming in, going out, coming in, going out before you guys, because your view is of the utmost importance as to what's going to work here. Some of you have been here for a while, and some of you will continue to be on this board for a while. So your input. I'm fine with the ball disappearing. I'm fine with the sun disappearing. Again, some of those elements were just kind of brought in to kind of give you the Daytona Beach feel and give the tourists that same feel of things that they've seen that may have brought them here.
Well, you might be able to incorporate them down into the roof line and the architectural profile of the building, both the beach ball and the sun, and reposition the Ocean Deck logo. But right now, it does seem like it violates the roof line, it violates the Florida vernacular style of the building.
Thank you, that's what I was
Where
looking
it
for.
doesn't really need to do that. So if it maybe could be compressed in, I think we all, salute your effort and we'll work with you to see it work. But did you guys, did the company bring these ideas to the artist, or did these come full-blown out of the head of Perigo?
No, definitely not out of Perigo's head.
Okay.
Definitely not. I kind of threw some ideas at him, and he
Okay.
came up with 3 or 4 different drawings. And from the 3 or 4, or the new ownership group kind of felt that this one was a lot simpler than some of the other ones. The other ones were a little bit more involved. And again, you don't want to make it too busy, because if you're trying to view it from a distance, you can catch it, see it, understand it. The less activity and the less color, the better.
Did you have an opportunity to show the artist the land development code, the defining section of what it has to do?
Oh, we didn't want to confuse the artist.
Well, why scare
I
them,
would have
Gary?
agreed, an artist wouldn't get
Gary
that.
David has a few comments
You
here.
know, and it shows it.
Yeah, we didn't want to talk about cost, and we didn't want to talk about code. Definitely not.
Well, we're bringing the cost down too.
Okay.
Yeah.
David.
Good point. You know us, I like the colors, love the colors. You know us, we got great colors everywhere. My question is, can you not somehow, I hate to have you change the whole Ocean Deck sign there, but incorporate the sun into the Ocean Deck sign? And instead of the beach ball,
Volleyball.
why not volleyball?
Oh, we
you guys are
can.
known for
Those were all
volleyball.
things that we talked about.
And somehow, because I agree with everybody else, shrinking it down inside the parameters of the building, and your sun and the beach ball do take away from the wave and the surf guy. I love the colors. God, I love the colors. But you guys are known for volleyball, and there's talk of volleyball coming back to Daytona Beach here shortly, in the next, hopefully,
Big
year or
Beach,
so.
Big Fun was the image of this ball.
Correct.
The CVB.
My choice would have been a volleyball as well.
But I, if tweaking it a little bit here and there, maybe incorporating the sun into the Ocean Deck sign itself, so you get a little bit of, you best of both worlds there.
What we had thought about with signage as well is, and that's just a whole other issue, but to simplify the sign a little bit more. It's hard to read from a distance because it does say Ocean Deck Restaurant and Beach Club on it. It doesn't need to say that much.
Ocean Deck.
It just
It
needs
just
to
needs
say
to say
Ocean
Ocean
Deck. Yeah.
And again, what element sits behind that was kind of up for discussion. Does it need to have anything behind it?
Well, actually, that's where your sun,
Yeah,
sun
the
would
sun
be
would work
great,
fine.
just behind Ocean Deck. Yeah.
Okay.
And you could have your surfer holding up a volleyball. But yeah,
You get enough feedback in?
did that help?
I do. I just need some feedback from you on how the process can proceed forward from here.
Well, I want to show on the sign I was talking about. Okay, forget about the Santa Claus that's up there. I had that during the holidays, but you see
The
how
jester.
do you see how I have gone beyond my parameter, and it's a permitted sign and the whole bit, and I think it's nice. I mean, I don't mind, I mean, if he's willing to concede to the sun and the beach ball and make it work, I don't mind that the wave goes over, you know, extends out from the building. I mean, I actually like it like that, and I think it'll make more of an impact for him. And we are the board that reviews these applications. We're not setting a precedent. I mean, if we like it, we pass it. If we don't like it, we don't have to. Everything is going to be based, is pretty much a subjective item that we have to look at.
Dean,
you know?
I think all we're doing tonight is giving Ken some ideas on how to move forward. We all like the design.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
with some tweaks to it, all we're doing is giving Ken some ideas of where to go from this point.
Okay,
I
I
mean, I
thought this
think
was final approval for
No,
the
no,
sign
no,
itself.
it's not no final
No, I
approval
don't think you can do final approval till I've got the 3D elevations and
Right.
can give you a real picture of what it's going to look
Right.
like. I mean, this is a concept, and I need a little bit more feedback.
Because you do have board members that, I mean, it's several of us that don't have a problem with the wave, and then others that do. But I think what I'm hearing the board say is there is definitely some problem with the sun and the ball and the busyness of what's happening there, and
Okay.
maybe somehow redoing your ocean deck sign, which, of course, now that gets expensive down the road. But if you're looking at that down the road and bringing the sun somehow into behind just a simple ocean deck,
Right.
you know, yeah.
I
didn't say that.
No, I know. I was I know. I was just summarizing so far.
We haven't heard from you
Teresa,
yet.
did you have a comment? I didn't want to go without you here.
Actually, I like the sun and the beach ball. I expect the sun to be up in the sky. The fact that they go beyond the building profile, I think makes it more eye-catching. And to me, a lot of your architectural design is on the west facade of the building. And in my humble opinion, this side of the building is sort of nondescript.
It's boring.
Yeah, I think it could use some life, and I think this portrays fun at the beach, which I think is what we're about here. So.
Perigo did a great job making that building look old because when we put it up, it looked like it was a condo or something.
Yeah.
It was painted light blue. It had white windows, and if I showed you a picture of it today, you wouldn't recognize it. But Perigo basically painted that whole building and fauxed the whole building because those boards are concrete boards. But if you look closer at it, if you have a chance during lunch, Perigo actually painted that whole building over 10 years ago. So it's one of his big pieces of art already.
I guess then the point is whether or not we want to suggest that there is a consensus, be it by 1 or 2 votes, to try and work within the profile of the building, granting some license to the wave, because I think that's very similar with your discussions with the staff.
Correct.
well.
And again, if there's any other of those 5 that you think are in question, maybe we need to address those as well.
And I don't think that we're here to exercise our personal judgment at all. I don't see that. I see us trying to apply some standards, appearance standards, that we find in Article 18 to this example. And sure, we bring our own prejudices to that, but that's why we have Article 18. That's why we have appearance standards.
I know,
So
but I have a difference with you.
Well, I understand
Okay,
that.
because your reading of Article
All right.
18 says that it has to be confined within the building. My reading
No,
of
I
it,
didn't say.
it has to be consistent with the design, and I think that's consistent with the design. I'm
Ken,
just-
Ken, here's what I might suggest, is that I think you've heard the discussion. You can always
Not
go
all
back
of
and,
it.
Well, no,
Waiting
oh,
on
Tim,
Timmy.
oh, I'm sorry, Tim. Well, we won't leave without you.
Go ahead.
Listen to what we've said. Maybe come back with a couple of options, a bigger one, a smaller one, and then,
Let's go.
and we'll go from there. I think the general concept is, we all like it. maybe a few modifications, maybe bring it within the building, maybe a little wave outside the building. Love the idea, though. Just give us a couple options maybe when you come back. But before we go, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, it might be a little busy to some people's taste or whatever, you know, one way or the other. I'm looking at a picture of Joe's Crab Shack that we just opened, and I'm looking at the sign on the front of the building that
You
exceeds.
need the big shark.
That
and the-
exceeds the line of the building there.
I don't think we ever got to
And
see.
the off-premise signage.
Yeah, I mean, we deviate all the time from what, because we're the E-zone, we're the entertainment area of the town. I took delivery, I called Townsend Signs, get a little description of what's gonna go on, what Al thinks is gonna happen there. That beach ball's gonna be big though. He thinks that to get the right perception of it, it's gonna come out about 2 feet. He figures the depth of the ball. I think it's gonna be very expensive though, just so you know. So
Great.
that might have some bearing on there, but you know, you gotta have that color, you gotta have that pop. You're gonna have people standing there, from what I hear, it's a 2-hour wait some nights there at Joe's Crab Shack, and you're gonna have somebody looking down the beach and saying, hey, you know, hey,
Let's go
there's a
there.
restaurant, bar over there, let's head over there. Myself personally, yeah, I might take a little of the busyness out, and see if you can maybe add some to your sign and get restaurant on there bigger, something like that to draw them over, but I don't know, I like it, I don't have a problem with it. I think-
Remember, Joe's Crab Shack didn't come to us. Remember that.
Yeah, but that's, well, because he's following the proper, you know, the.
Proper is
Yeah,
applicable?
well.
All
I
right,
mean,
all right.
so-
It's history, it's history.
So we need to, we're gonna penalize
I know.
Ken for doing it the right, yeah, no, but I'm just saying, I don't have a problem with it. It's a festive party area down there. I don't know.
The problem, on the, changing the sign that says Ocean Deck, I don't think we could do that because there is a part 4 that says no written messages. So if he leaves that alone and works with.
The sign is a different thing than the
Yeah,
graphic. They're two
exactly.
separate
Right.
issues.
Right,
different
right, that's
He's
what,
gotta come
no, I
forward
thought
with
you
a-
were saying come back with
No,
a different
No.
sign or put,
He'll have to make a whole new application for the sign. The sign application is a different application than.
Then this
okay, that's
Unless
fine.
the sun
Okay.
fits
Okay.
over
But, well, what I'd like to do to give them a little guidance, okay, just because there's going to be obviously some disagreements here. Yeah, I'm not pointing at you. But anyways, can we at least say, as a board, have a vote on whether we're okay with the wave going
I
outside
personally
of
would like
the-
to see both as an option, within and without, and let them look at it too. It only takes the computer guy a few minutes to give a couple of options and such, and it may end up looking better.
Okay.
And we don't know until we see it, so.
Reapply with your heads, will you please?
And from my end, I would just like to know if we can get on next month's
Sure.
agenda for a final vote so that
No problem.
our sign guys can get on this if it's going to happen. And again, I'll do as much as I can within the next 4 or 5 weeks to get some elevations for you as to what those waves are going to look like, how deep they're going to go.
Sounds good.
Actually, since this is on as a DEV 2012-075 and not a discussion item, do we need to do a motion to continue? Or just,
But
it's understood?
we might as well, I mean, the minutes will reflect it, so
I'll
I think
move
it'll
we
be all right.
continue the
Or we can do
application
it.
then.
All in favor of continuing?
Aye.
You're continued.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Appreciate
next
it very
month.
much.
And congratulations on the new ownership, and I think everyone wishes you the very best.
Well, thank you.
And we all eat it, we all eat at the ocean.
Bring a picture of red light.
All right.
Yeah. Edith
Moving on to-
Joe's, how big is that?
Moving on to item 6, special events discussion. Reed, I think the issue here was getting the workshop put together to address the potential recommended changes for special events. Have we got any concept as to when we might be able to do that?
No.
Well, what do we have to do to get that moving?
You guys.
Scream, yell, kick. No, I think what we need to do is we need to reset with Mr. McKittrick on a way to do that. Now, if I could, just to be clear about You wanted several groups in this meeting.
Well, they don't have to attend. They, participate, they could be invited to attend. It's really this board's workshop at which they're invited to participate, not necessarily as a joint board or anything like that, but simply because we feel that there are different groups that have a vested interest.
And could I suggest that we have this at the Peabody or somewhere like that?
That's fine. Why don't you and I coordinate over the next week, and we'll see if we can't get that moving.
Do that.
Upstairs at Joe's Crab Shack Bar would be great.
Sounds good, Anna.
The rooftop?
And an evening. All right, moving on to then the parking discussion, the Ocean Center parking lots, eliminating on-site parking requirements on Main Street. I had asked this to be put on just so we keep it on the burner. We've all seen the articles in the News Journal and such, which I thought were quite enlightening. Maybe not enlightening for us, but for others, and help bring to the spotlight the issues that we're facing. And I've been communicating back and forth with Josh Wagner, our county council member, who I communicated to get this moving, indicates that the county is proceeding with it. And I said, well, why don't we just proceed and have them, open the lots, open the lots, and then worry about putting in the pay later. And he says that's exactly what they're working on.
Okay.
And he's pretty much committed that it's going to happen. So that is still moving, and I've said, hey, at least let's do the one near Main Street and get this moving, and we can get it all integrated. And by the way, the wife and I went to Joe's Crab Shack and was too busy and jumped on pedicabs with Drew and went down to Anna's and had dinner last week, or weekend or so.
You made him
ago,
drive
so.
you all the way to Anna's?
Yep.
God.
Cost me, but what can I say? It was fun. So that is still moving along then. And then the redevelopment projects update, Reed?
Well, I thought you might want to talk about the beach side, but with all the articles in the News Journal, and I thought it was a fair, assessment going through. I was not sure that the Del Rey Beach comparison worked as the best comparison, but certainly there are some things that you can look at. The population's about the same. After that, I'm not going to say that it has a lot of validity, other than I know the people down there, I've been down there, made several visits. They have some very good programs. They're one of the leaders in the state when it comes to redevelopment and how they do it. Very professional. And so we look to them, particularly with our downtown and our development authority, which they have one of those as well, and they work together. So we've looked at them for that purpose as well. And I would hope that when we look at our Main Street, commercial corridors and Beach Street, that we can see the kind of success that they have. Those are 2 lanes. A1A is 2-lane on the beach side. It's not a major commercial or tourist area. They are 1 mile from the interstate in terms of that downtown area, not several miles as we are. The demographics are extremely different in terms of that area and the spendable income, and so there's other factors that really come into play, and it's not an excuse. It's just a different world that they're dealing with, but there are good examples of what they do that we're trying to learn from. Their grant programs was the first place we looked at, because the way they do it and the number of programs they have in trying to incentivize and make these things happen, we've looked at that, because that's something that we have modeled some of our programs after.
Well, Del Rey, I've been there several times also, and one thing I think about Del Rey, it's important, is that it's almost resident driven.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right.
It's not tourist driven.
Right.
And even though I've been there as a tourist, but it's very focused on let's make it livable for the local people, and that's drawing the outside people also. And so the more we can make our beachside palatable for us, the more we're going to make it palatable for our tourists to come and stay longer.
Here's some of the things too that were said about the residential, the neighborhoods, and that part Couldn't agree more about the things that we still have to do. And the good news is, I think that rental program at least is moving forward, and we'll see, they're going into the second meeting to potentially pass that ordinance, and hopefully that will change some of the things that happen over there and how we can help clean up the neighborhood. I think that impacts those historic homes that are in those neighborhoods as well, to get inside.
If
Mr.
I
Chairman?
could.
One quick second before I forget. Carrie, I think at the meeting 2 meetings ago, I'd asked for some draft language relating to the parking issue on Main Street. Did I do that? I think
I
did.
don't know. Usually Reed presents something and we go
Okay.
through it, so I don't know if that's something you've
Well,
been
we
working on.
requested it 2 meetings ago.
Yeah, 2 meetings ago, because I wasn't here last month, but some draft language, because the concept of wanting to remove the mandatory on-site parking along Main Street for restaurants and such. And so we're looking for some draft language on that. So when we get the county moving on the parking issue, then we can make that recommendation off to the city commission and such.
Okay, we don't have that yet.
But if we could really see that by next month, that would be appreciated.
All right.
Can we make comments?
Mr. Chairman?
1 second.
I think each one of us probably took different things away from the series of articles in the News Journal. And of course, we look at the same subject from different perspectives. I think it's just the nature of the beast. But to me, the big difference that I think the News Journal was trying to drive home was that each municipality and each redevelopment area within a municipality has choices to make. Not that they're good or bad choices, but we chose to go for big developments and put a lot of the available resources into 1, 2, or 3 major developments. And I think the quotes from the Chamber of Commerce and the quotes from some other business leaders reinforced that gamble. We seem to be looking for the big project. And I believe the Delray Beach example was an example that rejected the big project. Their hotel, their big hotel on the beach, was built without a penny of redevelopment money, and the renovation of their historic hotel was built without any was renovated without any redevelopment money, because they decided that they would start with the neighborhoods and with the streetscape from the interstate to the ocean, which is divided neatly into 3 or 4 sections based on usage. And that's a historic city too. I mean, let's face it, we're older, but not that much older than Delray. But Delray plays a different role in Palm Beach County than we play in Volusia County. But I thought it was a terrific start at a discussion that I know our city commission has already started to talk about, and that is whether or not we need to shift the model. I think one of the really nice things about the E-zone plan, is that it has incorporated a lot of the Delray material in, and if you really read it and look at it, it's just a matter now of our having to wait for good times again to have the resources to implement it. But I thought it was a very, very good and very fair series of articles. Not everything any of us wanted to see in print, but true nonetheless. And I think we play a role in either supporting or recommending to the city commission as time goes on, when decisions have to be made, how we're going to gamble with TIF money, how we're going to gamble with the future of the redevelopment area, our redevelopment area. And each area, I think, has different challenges and different problems. But the Main Street South Atlantic one is the one I'm interested in, and I think we're all interested in, because that's why we're here. So it was, I thought it was, we need to salute the News Journal for starting the discussion. But if you feel there was any validity at all in that discussion, we can't let it fall on deaf ears. We have to keep it going.
And Suzanne, I know you're chomping at the bit here.
Yes, I have several things I wanted to say. I was in Delray Beach during that time when it was just starting to be renovated. And I believe very strongly that the thing that ran that whole deal was I had clients and the senior executives of my clients and their companies lived in Boca.
Yeah.
And the junior execs who would eventually become partners in these businesses, they wanted to live in Boca at the beach or on the Intercoastal, but they couldn't afford it. So they went to Delray Beach. And I did quite a few homes for them. And I know that's what drove the whole remaking and regrowth of Delray Beach. It was totally resident driven, as you just said. And that's been my belief about Daytona. And rather than waiting for a big hotel or money to come in from somewhere again, I think that if we got really creative, and I've spoken to several of the commissioners about this, I've spoken to Reed about it, if we got real creative and publicized the fact to people outside this area, we could drive that right now in this with what the prices of these properties and these houses, what they are right now. When I went to the commissioners meeting, I found out they were going to try to pass this ordinance. I went out in my neighborhood and I knocked on doors. And it's really interesting because the way I could tell the people that owned the homes, I could just tell by looking at them. I live in Zone 3. So I went up, I knocked on the doors. I was trying to implore them to come to the meeting on July the 3rd, and especially implore them to come to the public hearing on the ordinance. And it was really interesting because the first 8 people I talked to all came and bought those houses there just like I did, outside Daytona Beach, outside the state of Florida, almost all of them. They didn't know about those, blighted slum landlord housing and the criminal elements, the people that live in them. They didn't know that. Neither did I when I bought my property. So anyway, they started saying things to me like, we ought to start property owners or even just residents who live here, renters alike. And we ought to start a coalition, and we ought to start, making our voices heard and what we want to do here. So remember a couple of meetings ago, I told you about New Smyrna Beach and the way they were getting their houses, their little cottages around Canal Street to upgrade and everything. They were letting people do little arts businesses and cuisine businesses in them, and then they could live in them. And I think that's a great idea, and I was going to go next week down there and talk to the people and see, how they're doing that. But even more important than that, if we would take some monies, I understand there's no monies anywhere in the budget left anymore, but if we would take some monies and we would creatively advertise or publicize to people in Orlando about these houses that are here and that they can be bought for $24,000, $36,000, $52,000, $76,000, and show pictures of these to people, they will come over here. They will come, they will pioneer, they will buy these houses up, and they will renovate them. And one person I talked to even suggested that maybe, I was thinking like billboard sort of things, but maybe we would publicize it in magazines like history, the preservation, historical societies, or people that would like to have a weekend cottage. I don't know the percentage. I'm going to find out what is the percentage of people that live in New Smyrna Beach that are weekend that come out of Orlando. A lot. That's the word I've heard from about 3 or 4 people. A lot.
There's some slight differences between New Smyrna, Delray, and Main Street area, and that is the quality of life that's afforded, that's enforced with respect to noises and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
And does somebody really want to come and buy a cottage and redevelop it and then be blasted until 2 a.m.? So
I ask all these people I've talked to so far, I asked them what they thought about Bike Week. they didn't have one objection to Bike Week.
I'm not talking about.
They didn't have any objection to the noise. They had an objection to the nasty, problem houses and people and stuff that are surrounding their properties. People from out of Daytona, nobody in Daytona will buy a house on Beachside in the zone I live in.
That's not so. That's not, probably
That's
not as
quite a
many as you'd
generalization,
like.
but-
You know, but that's not so.
Yeah.
Okay, I won't say nobody. I'll say most. But the thing is that if people in Orlando see the dozen houses or so that have been redone, like my house has been redone, and they see other people's houses, and they see what they paid for the property, and they see what they've done with them, they're beautiful. They would make beautiful weekend cottages. It would only take about another dozen or so in that 4-block square that I live in, and we would create a marketplace for Main Street. We would be the people who would be going to the Starbucks or whatever, the coffee shops and the art stores and things on Main Street. We would actually create the marketplace out of the residential area.
Huh.
But you've got to publicize and tell people outside of Daytona that it's here, because believe me, nobody knows this exists. Nobody knows. The house down the
No,
street.
They know it exists. They do. Across the street, they just bought one too and built it. But you've got to do more than just advertise that there's a house for sale. You have to create an environment that they want to come and live here.
Code enforcement. is the
Code
name of the
enforcement
game.
and such is where we got to really crack down and, make it so you can't continue subdividing these places and having these, low-life tenants living there with the people who earn the least and are the worst person to have in the neighborhood. We need to create an environment that doesn't allow that to happen. And so that's something that you need to proceed on.
Now,
You can't just advertise, I'm sorry, and
Well,
hope
I
that
tell
they're
you,
gonna come.
in my neighborhood, there are a dozen people who have moved into my neighborhood in the last 2 years. And they came from somewhere and they didn't know about it. So I disagree with you. I don't think that people in Orlando really know what exists here. I know people down south don't know what exists here.
Well, if there's a market, they will come. So,
now, actually, if I could,
Tracy.
just a couple comments, because I would back up just a little bit. I think Delray Beach actually makes a lot of sense to compare us to, because it's resident driven. And actually, it wasn't even the people who, this is where I grew up. I remember what Delray was. They started a little bit at a time, and it wasn't the people who couldn't afford to live in Boca who made a difference. What first made a difference in Delray Beach was they did a vision plan. They stuck to their vision plan. We have one that looks at all of this. We have a great vision plan in place. And then the first thing that happened was there was municipal development in the lower income neighborhood coming right off I-95. They built a police station, they built a fire station. I mean, I've been friends with the fire chief there for years, who's now retired. No one came into Delray until Delray started cleaning up and becoming safer. Then people started coming to Delray Beach. Then you started seeing a turnaround in downtown. And as it got cleaned up and became safer, and they did grants for the lower income businesses, and it wasn't even streetscape, it was just really cleaning up, fixing up, sprucing up, paint. And that drive from I-95, you would not get off on Atlantic Avenue.
To get gas.
You would not do it.
True.
You would come up and down US 1 down there, Federal Highway, and you would be south of Atlantic or north of Atlantic, but you would not come through Atlantic. Atlantic Avenue, until you got to A1A, was pretty much like going through the heart of our beach side, only our beach side looks way better at its worst than Atlantic Avenue ever was. So it was really a change there. I do think that what the for me, what those articles pointed out is what we've done for 20 plus 25 years, I'm sorry, it hasn't worked. it doesn't work. We have some very nice properties, we've had some very nice redevelopment, but it's pretty much like Atlantic City. Gambling was going to save Atlantic City. What gambling did was made the boardwalk of Atlantic City great, but as soon as you walked outside of all those big new development properties, the city became even worse. And they finally realized, you know, you've got to work at cleaning up your city. You've got to work at making it livable. You have to work, what people in this area have said for years, you know, if you don't want to live here, you're not going to visit here. You'll come once, but you won't come back. So I think that the articles pointed out I personally think it is time for a paradigm shift in how we do things if we pay attention to those basics. And interestingly enough, I think the online, what'd they do? Online ranking, it wasn't a rank, it was you've filled out, yes, survey, thank you, that's what I'm, actually was saying that. That was what people were, forget the prince that's going to come kiss Daytona Beach and turn, or the princess and turn the frog into a prince. That's not going to, it's time to work. And those are the ways to work. Now, I also, though, agree in terms, and it might be a little premature, but I agree with advertising outside of your area. I don't think Orlando is far enough outside, quite frankly. But Baltimore turned their inner city around by advertising, very specific market advertising for what was available on the inner harbor, where you couldn't find that anywhere else, cheap housing, and it was the same thing. And I do think that is very effective, but we have to do some homework first. You
got to create the environment.
Yeah, at least show that the city cares about turning this around as well. So.
Any other comments on the articles?
Well,
I have another comment. I understand that the inspections are going to be every other year and not every year. And the reason I've been trying to get people in my neighborhood to come to the meeting and public hearing, and we can all stand up and talk about this, is to ask it to be once a year. I don't understand the every other year. I was told the reason why. Cost, okay. And then the other thing I understand is they're using the, from what they said in the meeting, they're using the International's Renters Code.
It's the International Property Maintenance Code.
And it's not done by fire inspectors or fire marshals. And it's not, I haven't read it yet, so I need to do that. But I understand that it's not even dealing with structure, and that if it's done by code compliance officers, they're not even, that's not their responsibility or their knowledge, their expertise. So it seems to me like the whole thing is some sort of just a lightweight attempt at something, and I don't understand why, if we're going to do something, why wouldn't we do it and do it in depth and do it right?
Could I respond to that?
Yes, I'm just
Okay.
asking questions on it.
I'm a property owner in South Daytona, which it's my understanding this is actually, they looked at the South Daytona ordinance and are pretty much following that, and a landlord property owner, and we get inspected every other year. South Daytona doesn't have any, you're not going to see every other year here. You'll be lucky to see 3. We have more than 60% of our properties are rentals, so it's just not going to happen unless all we have are code officers. But we're not inspected by fire inspectors, but your code officers, when they use NAFTA, which is in our code, I think it's Article 18, also the International Property Maintenance Code, which we have, it's already adopted as part of our code. And those officers are familiar with that. And that code, both of those together look at fire, structure, safety, all of those. And it's a matter of training your code officers. Our properties are only seen by code, and they have no problem noting, if you don't have GFI, which is really a fire thing, or if you don't have hardwired in, they interpret smoke alarms as having to be hardwired in. They won't let you use battery or wireless. NAFTA actually lets you use wireless, but it's their interpretation. But they have no problem noting fire safety issues as well as others. And those are in those codes. You use those codes together. So it doesn't matter what you write. It's only as good as your officers and their training. And that's really what it comes down to. But it is there. We don't need to adopt something extra as part of this ordinance. We already have these things in our code. It's just then it becomes a matter of using them.
I think we're starting. I
Yeah.
think one of the answers to your question is why we can't do a thorough thing every year is we're starting. You know, for years here, we cited properties that were in non-compliance and fined them, only to forgive the fine 3 or 4 years later when the landlord decided to put a battery inside the device that he was being fined for, or re-roof his building. And as long as in the Main Street area there is an incentive to tear down and to not build, you're going to have a problem in your area. And we're going to have it now. For many years that was considered a positive thing because of certain special events. But I think the E-zone plan is raising that question again. As Tracy said, has it worked? I think things have worked, but they have not worked to the degree that they might be worth the investment, because they did not deliver the desired promise that was made to residents who continue to pick up the slack in the ad valorem tax area and in fees that we pay, enormous number of fees. So, yeah, I think the paradigm needs to be shifted now. We're having trouble just cutting down the days of certain events, 1 or 2. I mean, this is a big, major discussion because we have a style and a quality of life here that's very heterogeneous, unlike Delray Beach. Here we have a much broader, one of the reasons I love living here is because it is such a diverse, broadly drawn community. So it's going to take time, and I just hope we get to the point where we need to get in my lifetime. I don't see any easy fixes in a year or 2, but I have to salute the city commission for starting, and the mayor and the commissioners who voted with the mayor to get this ball rolling. And I think it's our job to, when an object at rest stays at rest, it stays at rest forever. But an object in motion will stay in motion, and I think the object is in motion now, and I think we can help keep the ball rolling.
Dino?
Well, the articles to me, one thing that it does, it tells me how much nicer it is operating a business, and I'm going to talk on the business perspective because we've been focusing on the residential perspective up to this point, but how nice it is to operate a business having the News Journal and the city behind you for once. I mean, in the past, how many years, I was constantly fighting. I mean, I was looking, and when I say I'm talking about the entire boardwalk. We had so much pressure against us. I mean, we had the city trying to take us, and we were trying to make the point that, hey, your philosophy is all screwed up. I mean, their philosophy back then, I'm talking about the previous commission, was build a hotel, the tourists will come. And we're like, we're an attraction, we're an amusement area. We bring tourists here. The way it's supposed to work is, create the demand, then you're going to have the demand for the hotel. I mean, and the previous commission, I mean, they were so adamant about going forward. It didn't even bother them that I provided them proof that Bill Gary turned around and said in a deposition in California that he misrepresented his assets to the city of Daytona. Instead of being worth $15 million, he was only worth $3 million. I had that deposition stamped, sent over to me, brought it behind this, in front of this commission, only have Bud Asher. Oh, I've reviewed his financials. I could assure you he's capable of doing this, okay? But anyway, so that's what we had to deal with. Sorry to bring up, some sore spots with, but the fact is it is nice to have the current city commission and the News Journal behind you. I mean, it does make life a lot easier, and hopefully, we could at least bring about a positive change in the tourists that are coming here now,
Very good. Teresa?
Where are we on the agenda?
Well, we've kind of merged redevelopment project
Project
and board
updates.
comments together, I think, here, so.
I wanted to ask Reed, what is the average household income of the Delray Beach CRA? And what is ours?
I don't have it memorized, so I know it was more than twice.
Yeah.
Twice, it was about double.
And what are we about,
But
30?
I
27?
think we're a little less, yeah,
20,
about 27.
27.
Right in that area.
Oh.
61, I think,
Well-
was the last.
But the question to ask is, what was it when they started?
Yeah,
Well, there
'Cause it was,
the same,
you have to look at it too, or at least the one way to look at it is to look at it as here's the beach side, and then you go out a mile, 3 mile, and 5 mile, and that's a typical retailer's perspective. And so we use that because that data is available, and you can get that in both cities because there's real estate available, and they put it out there. So that was one way to compare versus just go to the demographic for the entire city, because that kind of skews the numbers.
I just want to say that prior to some of the developments, I remember what was there on A1A, and sometimes you don't always recognize the good things you have when you have it. But in my opinion, there was a portion there of A1A that was very, very bad area, and I think it's vastly improved. And I also think it has helped the surrounding businesses. So I think we should be careful that we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater here, because to me, a lot of the work that has been done has been a vast improvement. I mean, I think A1A looks great. I'm recently so happy to see the pots of flowers and landscaping on Main Street. I think it softens our image. I think I guess the city, I don't know if it's the DOT or the city's putting in at the intersections the treatments for blind people. Is that the city? City doing it? Yeah. I think a lot of good has been done, and I think we should make sure we don't overlook it. And I agree with a lot of your comments about the neighborhoods, and it would be wonderful if I think the greatest affliction the neighborhoods do have is just what you pointed out. It's the trouble spots, and I think it hurts the entire neighborhood. You know, having it spotty is almost worse than having it all bad, you know, because it hurts those who, like your place is just spectacular, you know. And I think your house will lift that area there. But I think the city's on the right track, and I have a lot of respect for the administration and what they do. And I have confidence that this will be another step forward that the city is taking.
Okay. Did anybody, Tim?
Well, I mean, I guess it's kind of like in board comments. The last 2-3 weeks, we've had a couple big conventions, church youth groups come through the area. I've gotten a lot of interesting feedback from people. And the other night I had somebody ask me for my business card. Well, I got an email today, and I printed out copies if anybody wants to see it. Basically, well, here, I'll pass them around. Here, there you go. You'll read Dinos. There's some big words in there for him.
do you want one to have, so you have
I've
one?
got my email, and there's one for the reporter.
And one for the,
As far as code enforcement goes and things like that, and this email will tell you, we've talked about it before. People come in out of their hotel rooms and what's in the windows of the stores as far as the profanity, nudity, obscene things. You know, we've got this group right now, there's about 6,500 kids, not counting the chaperones, the pastors that are with them, and these are people that if they come here and have a good experience, they will come back again with their families other times. A lot of these people aren't going to come back, and we got to figure out a way to get, because I know there's the ordinances on the books as far as what's displayed in the windows and things like that. If you go into stores and they're going to have adult merchandise and stuff like that, it needs to be posted that there's adult merchandise in here. Put it behind the doors like the old video rental places used to do or whatever. But we want to promote this family atmosphere. We want to lift ourselves up, but at the same time we keep missing the little things. And it's the little things that we can do with the resources we have. And that's what we keep forgetting. I don't know if it's just we're always looking at, what's on the horizon or the big project or what it may be, but it all comes down to code enforcement again. Be it illegal rentals, all the other stuff, but this is a simple fix here to come back out.
Is there a code that would prohibit this, or is it?
We have stuff on the books as far as we have stuff on the books as far as profanity and the T-shirts and things like that,
And what's
especially
on
on display
display.
in the windows. This reminds me of 12, 15 years ago when we had the body piercing. That was prevalent all over, and I know in my business I kept having people come inside, scout the store, then leave, and then come back with their family because they didn't know what they would find once they walked inside the doors of the store.
Reed, this brings me about to the issue of code enforcement or lack thereof, and even the lack of an ability for a citizen to make a complaint and have that documented and then followed up with the city. I believe we need to have an ability for a citizen to send an email or something and put them on notice that this is going on and have it followed up. And I don't see that. I don't see it happening with code enforcement. When they get focused on something, they do that. But when we have all these, the sign waivers, we've been talking about them for months out here, okay? We got now the profanity and issues going on that shouldn't be there. But how does somebody communicate that effectively to code enforcement and have that followed up?
And part of it is, just so y'all know, you know how many code officers, inspectors you have for Beachside?
One.
One. That's why. Just take a look at the number of open cases. Take a look at what it takes to keep up the paperwork of those cases. And yes, it's a huge delay, and they do have problems with track it. You can email, and supposedly you can even send it in, anonymously, only you can't. It won't let you do it. And track it somehow doesn't update I've met with the city manager and with Chief Chitwood and with Hector. That was the end of May following up this. I have code complaints going back 2 years on rental properties on the exterior. Forget the interior, the exterior with rotten wood, one that the mayor gets to drive by every single day on his way to and from home. And trying to keep up with all of that, it's only as good as the training, it's only as good as your system, and it's only as good as you have enough officers to keep up with it. And it's frustrating. It is, it's driving me nuts. And they keep saying, well, it's IS's problem, what's happening online and with track. I don't care whose problem it is. Someone needs to fix it so any citizen can follow up on any complaint. That was the whole purpose of that, and it's not working, and it's still not working, and it wasn't working over 6 months ago.
And prosecute them.
First, get it working.
Yeah.
You'll never even get that far if you can't get it working. I agree.
Any other board comments and such? Because then I have one quick one.
I have a comment.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to give a misunderstanding that I was not behind, I call them the Three Musketeers, the three beachside commissioners, who I think are the most wonderful thing that's ever happened to this city since I've been here and been involved, and I support them in everything, and I'm thankful that they got the ordinance to pass. So I just didn't want, because I wanted it to be stricter, I didn't want you to think that I'm not supportive of them, because I am, and very thankful. And I have one other comment, and this is a question. I went by the Sunoco station, and it looks to me like they're up and running and operating.
They are.
But whatever, how, I must have missed something. I must have snoozed somewhere. Did I go on snooze?
They're entitled to use the station as a gas station.
Yeah.
Then why did they, I'm just trying to learn how
Well,
how this works here. Why did they come before the board then?
Because they want to
expand.
improve their property and change it, bring it up to the model that they now have as corporate.
And move into a residential neighborhood.
And outside of a redevelopment area.
Right.
I mean, they wanted to increase everything. And if they quit using what they were using for 3 months, which I believe, you know, if they hadn't reopened that store really quickly, they would have lost their grandfathering. It is a legally non-conforming use they are doing right now.
Currently, right.
Currently, the convenience store part of it. So, yeah, it does get rather more involved.
And if they decide to continue to renovate in their current location with the current footprint and upgrade the tanks right there and the receptacles, that is really the best we can possibly ask for, because it is allowed under the current code.
My comment is, Reed, this past Saturday at 7 a.m., I think it was the track club or the tri club hosted a 4-mile run walk on the beach. And I was down there involved in that, and we had some city people opening some stuff up and such. But when they opened the restrooms up right there at Sunsplash Park, they were supposedly a disaster.
Yeah, at Breakers
Yeah.
Park.
They were nasty. There was no toilet paper. They were filthy. They were also very late in getting opened up also.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, rather disgusting for all these people that had come in for the run, and to find the restrooms in such a disastrous shape, because pretty much everybody needs to use the restroom before the race.
And they were all going into the Hilton Hotel.
They were all
in order
looking for
to-
alternative sources.
Yeah, you're going to hear from the Hilton.
It was at the Sunsplash or Breakers?
Breakers.
Breakers is our
Breakers.
park.
Yeah.
Right next to the pier.
And so it was just, you know, it was unfortunate.
Well, also, what I've been hearing here is a lot of comments, questions about code enforcement. And I would think if Hector will have some time, I'm going to invite him to come here at your next meeting so he can maybe address some of these things. We're working on those oceanfront fences, kind of bring you up to date on that, the rental program.
And if we can assist them in applying some pressure to get some more code enforcement or whatever, you know, if it's a lack of staff's the problem, we need to know.
Mr. Chairman,
Not that we can do much, but we can at least make some noise.
in 1977, when I moved into a house on Jessamine Boulevard, we had, next door to me, someone's side yard had been purchased and a quadruplex had been built in the side yard with less than a foot from the property line on both the east and the west side. We had how many kinds of zoning, Tracy,
Oh,
in
my
our
gosh.
neighborhood? We had dorms, we had 15 and 20 cars parked on the front yard in the area, and it was the neighborhood association working with our elected official that over time, and it took 4 or 5 years to turn the neighborhood around. And I think on A1A, I don't know if there's a business association of merchants on A1A. I know there is one on Main Street. I think Teresa is the current chairman. I think associations and neighborhood groups have to police themselves. They have to really get organized. We would have never gotten the local designation in our historic district had it not been a community effort working with our elected officials. So poor Hector, he's one guy, and in our neighborhood, we have probably 100 activists in our neighborhood who are working every day to make sure that we don't have cars dumped on the side, on the right-of-way, and we don't have trucks, semi-tractor trailers parked in garages and things like that. But that's what it takes, does it not, Tracy?
Oh, yeah.
It takes that. So maybe the A1A Association, if it isn't sensitive to the needs of standards on A1A, maybe you need a new one. Maybe you need to start a new association. I'll tell you, Tracy, it wasn't easy in our neighborhood. It took a lot of slugging away north of Seabreeze Boulevard to get that historic district in shape. Now the tax assessor declares it some of the most valuable property on the beach side. It's the same property, my friends. It just has a very active group of residents. So I think we can do it all over the city. I think we've seen huge improvements on the west side. I think there have been amazing turnarounds in neighborhoods on the west side and farther south on the beach side too. So it can be done. And the letter that you got, Timmy, I hear that all the time about people who bring children to the beautiful Hilton and within 2 or 3 blocks of that facility run into stores that offend them tremendously, almost to the point where they decide to spend that night and then leave prematurely and go somewhere else. And that tells us something. I mean, I'm certainly not a nutcase when it comes to First Amendment freedoms, but yet there are community standards. We have laws on the books. And something tells me that the associations really need to look at it. I don't know, Mrs. Doan, whether or not the Main Street group polices itself. I think you have probably fewer stores on Main Street that have merchandise like this. I think it's mostly on A1A, but maybe if the businesses got together. It's certainly not good for business to drive people away, that's for sure. Maybe something could be done to help poor Hector, because I know what he's going to say. You know what he's going to say, too. He's one man.
Thank you, everybody. So we stand adjourned?
Because I
You know, 10 paces still, the registered front there on the board.